of arsenic, you probably think of murder mysteries. But did you know arsenic is a naturally occurring element in our environment? It's in the air, soil, and water from which our food and beverages are grown and harvested.
So you're probably wondering, how could that be safe? Well, 2 years ago, the Dr. Oz show launched an extensive investigation testing dozens of popular apple juice brands from 3 different cities across America. Dr. Oz said the apple juice that contained arsenic was made from apple concentrate imported from China, Argentina, and Brazil. He said farmers in those countries use pesticides that contain arsenic.
And since then, the FDA started reevaluating its level of concern for arsenic in apple juice, looking at long-term effects of certain levels. So, how much is too much? Well, here to sort it all out with us is Jamie Mack, Director of Community Environmental Health Services with the Delaware Division of Public Health. Thank you, Jamie, for joining us this afternoon. This is a kind of a frightening subject, arsenic. I got to ask you, is it here on Delmarva? And if it is it in our food and water?
And the answer is yes. You know, arsenic in food and water, it's not a Delaware problem or a Delmarva problem. It's not even a regional problem, it's a global problem. Arsenic is present both as a natural element in soils and rocks, and it's also present from man-made activities. Here on Delmarva, with a long history of agriculture, there's a lot of historic use of agrochemicals like pesticides that had arsenic as a main component, and some of that still remains in the soil and in the groundwater to this day.
So it is here. So how does it affect our bodies?
Well, the concern really is for cancer. You know, there's documented studies that show that long-term exposure to high levels can lead to bladder, lung cancer, and some other health effects. Thankfully, the levels that we're talking about in apple juice and rice and some of the other products that we consume are much, much lower than the studies that were used to demonstrate those links with cancer. So again, we're not immediately concerned. We're not throwing out our rice or anything like that. But at the same time, FDA is looking down the road to see what the long-term perspective is. They're looking at more studies, they're looking at more risk assessments to make sure that we're safe in the long term.
And that's essentially what we're talking about, because in addition to the Dr. Oz investigation, a popular consumer watchdog group also did an investigation, and the FDA asked the FDA to limit arsenic in those products. Where does that stand now?
Well, earlier this month, the FDA came out with a report. They've now done over 1,000 samples of rice in the last 2 years, and they have determined that there's no immediate cause for concern. There is arsenic in the rice, but it's at very, very low levels. The average, I believe, is less than 10 parts per billion, whereas some of the studies I was referring to before that linked cancer to arsenic were in the hundreds, if not thousands of parts per billion. So we're really at very low levels. So again, that's why there's not an immediate concern. It's just a reason to look further at the products, look further at the things we're eating, and get more data and have better information.
Okay, so arsenic in rice, in food, is it different with arsenic in our water?
No, it's really the same concern, because ingestion is ingestion, whether it's water, whether it's food. We're concerned about rice right now because it's surprising how much rice is in the American diet, especially when we talk about kids and infants and some of the more sensitive populations. Because if you look at baby formulas, if you look at the rice cereals, things like that, those are really a high percentage of a lot of kids' diets, including mine. You know, I know that was the first solid food my kids eat, was the rice cereal off the shelf.
So what can we do?
Well, really the key is to be a better educated consumer. So we're talking about food and we're talking about water. When we talk about water, if you're on a public water system, your water supplier already tests for arsenic as well as a lot of other things. If they notice it at a high level, they're required to take action to reduce those levels.
Right.
If you're on a private well, you would have to go to a private lab, which you can get in contact with through your local health department, your local drinking water department, and have it tested. And if it is too high, there's treatment technologies that can be used in a residential home, even down to just a single faucet type of thing.
Okay.
When we talk about food, really, varying the diet, eating a more balanced diet is one of the keys. Because there's a lot of other grains that you could feed infants other than rice. You know, there's 3 or 4 other cereals on the shelf right next to it. So really that variation and limiting the one product we know that could be a problem is a good strategy. Because the thing to keep in mind is that we're talking about the soil and water, so there's a lot of things growing obviously that could be affected by arsenic, but for some reason rice seems to be able to take it up a little better than a lot of the other produce and a lot of the other grains. So that's why rice is kind of a focus right now.
And did I understand correctly you to say that in this particular case, processed food is actually a little better for you.
That's actually what the FDA has found. They've determined that the arsenic concentrations are higher in the outer hulls of the rice grains. So when you think about brown rice, those concentrations were a little bit higher, whereas you think about rice, white rice, or the processed rice cereals, things that have those outer hulls stripped off, the concentrations were a little bit lower. Now keep in mind that when we say that, the numbers from a scientific perspective are virtually the same. There's not enough of a difference to say eat white rice and don't eat brown rice.
Okay.
What about food that is imported from other countries? I mean, we get rice from other countries, don't we?
Well, and that's, I think at the beginning we talked about it being not a Delmarva problem, but a regional or a global problem, because we get rice and produce and other grains from all over the world at this point. And part of what FDA did with their testing was not just to sample one specific area. They took rice off the shelves throughout the country. So they got the major rice producing regions in the US as well as rice producing regions in other countries. The data right now doesn't really show, well, we'll stay away from this area and we can eat from this area. It really showed that the concentrations or that arsenic was present throughout the areas. It was lower in some spots, higher in others. But really with the processing and the blending and things like that of the different regions, it's not an issue where we can say, well, eat rice from this area, but don't eat rice from this area. It really just goes back to the, everything in moderation, vary your diet, and eat a well-balanced diet on the whole.
Be a smart consumer.
Absolutely.
Jamie Mack, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
And if you would like to learn more about what we talked about today or about the Delaware Division of Health, go to our website, delmarvalife.com.
Okay, so some people go to great lengths to make sure that the food that they eat is void of any contaminants, and that's the idea behind organic foods. But organic food usually costs more.
In fact, between organic foods and gym memberships, healthy living can sometimes be expensive. So today we offer some health trade-offs that really work.
To live healthy, it seems the list is never ending.
Like salads, like vegetables.
I like to buy organic fruit.
Relieve yourself of stress.
I ride the bicycle up to the grocery store.
The good news, you can swap out some of those health goals for faster, less expensive fixes. First, you may have heard that you should eat all organic produce to avoid pesticides, but that can get expensive. Instead, avoid organic versions that are highest in pesticides like apples, celery, cherry tomatoes, cucumbers, and grapes. The Environmental Working Group has a list of the dirtiest dozen fruits and vegetables. Another health goal, brush your teeth after every meal, but that's not always an option. The American Dental Association recommends chewing sugarless gum when you can't get to your toothbrush. Studies show chewing it for 20 minutes after meals helps prevent tooth decay.
And another healthy goal that you might have heard of is to exercise most days of the week. Well, instead, get moving throughout the day in small ways at least every hour. Now, Tom Holland, author of the 12-Week Triathlete, says think the acronym NEAT. Non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It refers to little activities we do during the day that boost metabolism, like walking lunges down the hallway. I want to see you do that.
I'll get right on it.
Up next on Delmarva Life, we speak with the author of Eat, Pray, Love, Elizabeth Gilbert. Find out how the journey that led to her popular memoir changed her forever. Plus, Elizabeth weighs in on what it was like to have an A-list star, Julia Roberts, play her in her Eat, Pray, Love movie.
Also, it sat at the bottom of the ocean for more than 300 years. Now, artifacts from one very famous shipwreck are here on Delmarva. How they got here, plus Brian shows us some of the items currently on display and how you can see them for yourself.
And later, he was best known for his music, but did you know there was a sandwich Elvis couldn't go without? Well, we're in the kitchen putting a breakfast twist with Elvis's favorite famous flavors.
But first, we've been talking about your health and the impact that certain foods can have on it. Dr. Oz says there are certain spices that can actually help your health.
Hi, I'm Dr. Oz. For years, I've been trying to get people to think of food as medicine. That's especially true when it comes to spices. Here's what I keep in my pantry. Cinnamon. Research shows that cinnamon can reduce blood sugar levels and lower cholesterol. Ginger. It's critical to lowering your blood pressure, and it can also prevent upset stomach from motion sickness. It also, by the way, can help alleviate arthritis pain, and it reduces your risk of cancer. Garlic. It improves your heart's health. Researchers found that garlic can lower total cholesterol and triglyceride levels by an average of 10%. And finally, kick it up a notch with some super spices. Cayenne pepper and paprika can help fight high blood pressure and improve your circulation.